You think the worst pain is being betrayed. It's not. The real agony is kissing lips that just touched another man, holding a body that no longer belongs to you, and not even knowing it. Many men convince themselves her distance is just stress or age or routine. But the truth is harsher. Women rarely confess, yet they always reveal, and if you miss the signals, you become the quiet accomplice of your own humiliation. That's why today, here on Stoic Reflections, I am about to reveal 8 signs that give away a woman who just slept with someone else. Signs most men ignore until it's too late. And the last one, it's the nail in the coffin, the one she can't hide, no matter how hard she tries. Before I walk you through these 8 signs, take a second to subscribe and hit like, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this message is reaching, because betrayal speaks the same language, no matter where you live. 1. The cold silence of her body. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from words. It comes from the body. And when you've been with a woman long enough, you know that silence. You know when her touch has weight, when her kiss has warmth, when her body is reaching for you without you asking, and you also know when that current goes dead. This is one of the hardest signs to face because it doesn't scream at you, it whispers. You lean in to kiss her and she turns her face slightly. You touch her shoulder in bed and she stiffens instead of melting. She says she's tired, but her body isn't heavy with exhaustion, it's heavy with indifference. That difference matters because tiredness recovers with sleep, indifference doesn't. Here's the truth most men don't want to admit. When a woman has been fulfilled by someone else, she doesn't come back to you hungry, she comes back satisfied, and satisfaction leaves no space for you. Imagine trying to light a fire that's already burned itself out. No matter how many matches you strike, the wood stays cold. That's what it feels like when her body has already given itself elsewhere. The mistake men make here is denial. You tell yourself it's just stress, or it's age, or this is just what happens in long relationships. No, attraction doesn't die of old age. It dies when it moves to another source. If she used to pull you close after work but now rolls away, that's not routine. It's a signal. So what do you do with this knowledge? You don't beg. You don't push harder. You observe. You test. Instead of chasing, pull back. Watch if the distance shrinks on its own or if it widens even further. A woman who still desires you will eventually reach out again. A woman who's given herself away will let the silence deepen. Your job isn't to force her body to respond. Your job is to recognize when the response is gone. The shift is painful, yes, but it's also liberating. Because once you stop lying to yourself, you stop wasting energy on a flame that someone else already put out. And here's the problem. If the body doesn't speak to you anymore, don't think the truth will hide. Because if her skin has gone silent, her habits will start screaming. If you don't see it in her touch, you'll smell it in her rituals. 2. The cleansing ritual. When a woman has been intimate with another man, she doesn't walk through your door carrying the scent of betrayal. She walks in smelling fresh, too fresh. A new perfume that wasn't there before, a shower that lasted longer than usual, clothes changed for no reason, underwear swapped in a way that doesn't match the rest of the day. On the surface, it looks like self-care. In reality, it's a cover-up. This is what I call the erasing ritual. She's not just cleaning her body, she's trying to clean her conscience, and most men miss it because they want to. You tell yourself she just likes to feel fresh, or she's trying a new scent. That's how you gaslight yourself, because you don't want to face the darker possibility that she's removing the traces of someone else before you notice. Here's how it works. A woman knows her body tells stories. Skin holds on to smells, hair carries traces, clothes remember contact. So she scrubs, she sprays, she hides the evidence under lavender and soap. And the irony is that the more she tries to erase, the louder it becomes. That sudden obsession with hygiene isn't a random act, it's a pattern. Let me be clear. This doesn't mean every shower equals betrayal. That's not the point. The point is change. If she never cared much about rushing to the bathroom after work, but suddenly does, if she's suddenly guarding her laundry like it's classified, you pay attention. Psychology isn't about absolutes. It's about shifts. It's about noticing what no longer fits the rhythm of who she was with you. So, what's the move? Stop excusing the inexcusable. Don't laugh it off. Don't pat yourself on the back thinking, at least she's taking care of herself. No. Observe. Connect the dots. If this ritual repeats, if it always comes with that too perfect smile afterward, you know what's going on. The mistake men make is ignoring their nose and their gut. You smell the perfume, but you call it fragrance instead of deception. You notice the over-cleanliness, but you label it personal growth. That's how you become an accomplice to your own replacement. The solution is awareness. When the pattern shows up, you don't confront with rage, you acknowledge with clarity. You don't need to accuse, you need to see. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that clarity changes how you show up. But here's the thing, hygiene is just the surface. Underneath, the game goes deeper. Because when her body is clean, she still has to deal with her emotions, and guilt has a way of spilling out sideways. 3. The blame game. Unjustified irritation. When guilt becomes too heavy for her to carry, she doesn't confess it, she transfers it. Suddenly you're the problem. You walk through the door, and instead of a hello, you get a complaint. You load the dishwasher wrong. You're too quiet, you're too talkative. Whatever you do, it's not enough. That irritation isn't random, it's strategy. Here's the psychology behind it. If she paints you as the villain, she doesn't have to feel like the betrayer. She rewrites the script in her head. In her version, she didn't step outside the relationship because she wanted to. She did it because you were inattentive or controlling or boring. This is projection at its sharpest. She can't handle the conflict inside herself, so she pushes it onto you. The trap most men fall into is defending themselves. You try to explain, you argue, thinking logic will fix it, but you can't out-logic guilt. The more you defend, the more ammunition she gets to keep painting you as the bad guy. And before you know it, you're walking on eggshells in your own home. Here's the shift. Stop playing defense. You don't need to win the argument. You need to win your dignity. Next time she snaps at you over something ridiculous, don't rise to the bait. Don't beg, don't debate. Look her in the eye and say calmly, you don't need to fight to justify what you've already decided. Then step back, not out of weakness but out of strength. You're showing that you see the tactic and you won't dance to it. That one move flips the dynamic, because when you don't play the role she wrote for you, her script collapses. Now the weight of her guilt sits where it belongs with her, and you just claim back your emotional ground. Men often ask me, but isn't staying silent weak? No. Weakness is letting someone bait you into chaos. Strength is control. You're not ignoring the issue. You're refusing to be manipulated by it. That's what separates a man being drained from a man standing tall. But remember this, projection is powerful, but it isn't the final mask. There's another battlefield where the truth shows up without her even speaking, a place no excuse can cover, and it's in her body itself. 4. The body doesn't lie. A woman can rehearse her excuses. She can mask her moods. She can polish her story until it sounds convincing. But there's one place she can't control, her body. And this is where most men betray themselves. Not because they can't see, but because they refuse to look. You know her rhythms, her warmth, her reactions. That's why when something changes, you feel it, even if you don't want to admit it. Maybe she feels unusually tense or unusually relaxed. Maybe her responsiveness has shifted, either exaggerated or strangely absent. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's glaring, but it's never random. Here's the cruel part. You don't need to be a doctor to notice, you need to be honest. Men often explain it away. Maybe it's hormones, maybe she's stressed. And yes, those things can happen. But when the shift is sudden, when it doesn't fit the usual pattern, you owe it to yourself to pay attention, because ignoring what your senses already picked up is the fastest way to humiliate yourself. The mistake is thinking that by pretending everything's fine, you're saving the relationship. You're not. You're just postponing the collapse. A body that has been with another man carries an imprint, not always visible, but always felt. And when you sense it, but you force yourself to stay quiet, you're lying to yourself more than she's lying to you. So what do? First, stop running from your intuition. If something feels off, don't shove it down. Let yourself register it. Second, stop overcompensating. Men often respond by trying harder, more affection, more patience, more effort in bed, as if more giving will fix what's already been taken. It won't. You don't win desire back by throwing effort at it. You win by recognizing when it's gone. Here's a practical step. Instead of chasing her body, step into clarity. If intimacy feels wrong, scale back and observe. Don't accuse. Don't interrogate. Just notice how consistent the change is. That awareness is your shield. It prevents you from investing more into someone who's already detached. And the deeper truth: if you ignore your senses, you're not being strong, you're being scared. Strength isn't denial. Strength is facing what you already know, even when it burns. But guilt doesn't always show up as coldness. Sometimes, to cover the cracks, she goes in the opposite direction. She turns warm, affectionate, even tender in a way that feels almost too good to be true, and that's exactly what it is. 5. Excessive affection, the theater of guilt. Not every betrayal looks cold. Sometimes it walks through the door, wrapped in kisses, hugs, and a sudden wave of sweetness. And if you're not paying attention, you'll mistake guilt for love. This is one of the cruelest tricks, because it plays directly on your hope. You felt her slipping away, you've sensed the silence, and suddenly she's holding your hand again, kissing you on the cheek, whispering, "I love you," with watery eyes, and your heart wants to believe it's real. You think, she's coming back to me, but she isn't. She's trying to come back to herself. That affection isn't for you, it's for her conscience. Here's the psychology. After crossing the line, many women don't pull away, they pull closer, not because they've rediscovered their desire, but because they need to silence the guilt. Touching you, cooking for you, saying nice words, it's all part of the act. The act isn't to keep you happy, it's to keep her from drowning in self-disgust. The mistake men make is treating this affection like a second chance. You drop your guard, you stop observing, you breathe out in relief, and that's when you lose all leverage. You become the comfort toy, the safe space she clings to while her passion burns somewhere else. You end up holding her guilt, not her love. So, what's the move? Learn to test the source. Ask yourself, does this affection come with consistency or only in waves after unexplained absences? Does she touch you with desire or with obligation? Does she lean in with warmth or does it feel rehearsed, almost exaggerated? Those questions cut through the fog. And here's the tough medicine. Don't reward guilty affection. Don't let her wipe her conscience on your shoulders. You don't need hugs that are born from betrayal. What you need is honesty, even if it's cold. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is this: "I'd rather have your silence than your guilty embrace." That statement isn't for her, it's for you. It's your way of reclaiming self-respect in the face of false tenderness. Because here's the truth: love doesn't need theater. Real connection doesn't show up only after guilt. If her affection feels like an apology instead of desire, you already know the difference. And once you know, you can never go back to pretending. But if you keep accepting her guilty embrace, the next stage is worse, because she won't just touch you without desire. She'll stay with you physically, while her mind drifts miles away. 6. Emotional absence in intimacy. There's a difference between a body beside you and a soul with you, and once you feel that difference, it's impossible to unfeel it. This is the stage where betrayal cuts the deepest, not because of what she does, but because of what she withholds. She gives you her body, but she no longer gives you herself. Picture this. You're in bed. Everything looks normal. She touches you, she moves, she even moans. On the surface, it's all there. But something is missing. Her eyes are empty. Her energy doesn't sync with yours. You can feel that she's somewhere else, replaying a memory that doesn't involve you. That's not intimacy. That's theater. And here's the brutal truth. A woman who's emotionally absent during intimacy is already gone. You're not making love. You're playing a role in her cover-up. Men who ignore this always tell themselves the same comforting lie. She's just tired, or it's stress. But deep down, you know the difference. Tiredness still allows presence. Stress still allows connection. This absence, it's a void. The mistake most men make is pushing harder. You think, if I try more, she'll come back. So you give more affection, more patience, more effort, hoping to win her over. But the more you push, the further she drifts. Because her fire isn't missing, it's burning somewhere else. And every extra ounce of effort you give just teaches her one thing. She doesn't need to give anything back. So what's the solution? Stop chasing ghosts. Respect yourself enough to notice when her soul isn't with you. Pull back. Say less. And most importantly, don't confuse physical participation with emotional presence. When her spirit has left, your job isn't to drag it back. It's to decide whether you'll keep lying in a bed that feels colder by the night. Here's a simple step. Next time you sense that absence, don't cover it with more effort. Pause. Look at her. And in your mind, tell yourself the truth. I'm not here to beg for connection. I'm here to recognize reality. That shift in mindset alone changes everything. It stops you from being the man who tries to revive a bond that's already been buried. Because being next to a woman who isn't truly with you isn't love. It's humiliation. And if you let that humiliation settle, the next sign will expose it in plain daylight. She won't just leave you. 7. The late returns. Empty excuses. When love is real, time bends to make room for it. A woman who still desires you will find her way back to you, even on the busiest days. But when her fire is gone, suddenly the clock turns against you. She's late again and again, and every excuse feels thinner than the one before. She tells you work ran long, her phone died, a friend needed her. At first, you want to believe it. You convince yourself these are normal things, because yes, life gets messy. But when messy turns into a pattern, when lateness becomes routine, it's not about life, it's about priority. And you're no longer at the top of the list. Here's the psychology. Lateness is more than missing time. It's a test. She's not just running late, she's measuring how much you'll tolerate. She wants to see if you'll question it, if you'll push back, or if you'll keep accepting less while hoping for more. Every time you let it slide, you train her. You teach her that your dignity is negotiable. The trap most men fall into is silence. You see the inconsistency, you feel the sting, but you swallow it. You tell yourself, if I say something, I'll sound insecure. But insecurity isn't asking for respect. Insecurity is pretending you don't notice. So, what's the move? Call it what it is, not with yelling, not with begging, but with boundaries. The next time she drifts in late with another flimsy story, don't interrogate, don't demand details. Simply look at her and state the truth. You weren't here, and that tells me everything I need to know. Then let the silence sit. That silence is more powerful than any argument because it places the responsibility back where it belongs, on her choices. Here's a practical step. track the pattern, not the excuse. Don't waste time dissecting the details of each story. Instead, pay attention to frequency, to tone, to how your gut reacts every time. Patterns tell the truth, even when words don't. And here's the harsh reality. A woman who still chooses you will always come home. Maybe late once in a while, sure, but not as a habit. If she no longer returns to you, it's because she's already returning to someone else. But lateness is only half the story, because even when she tries to cover it, her own words will betray her. And when her story collapses under its own contradictions, that's when the truth finally breaks wide open. 8. The collapse of her story. Stories are fragile things. They can be rehearsed, polished, and repeated. But the moment pressure builds, cracks appear. And when a woman has crossed the line, her story eventually collapses under its own contradictions. You've seen it before. She comes home late. Words tumbling out too fast. Details changing with each retelling. One night it's a co-worker who needed help. The next time it was a last-minute errand. You notice the gaps, the mismatched timelines, the way her tone doesn't match her words. And most telling of all, you notice her eyes. They don't hold your gaze anymore. They dart, they drop, they flicker with unease. That's not stress. That's deception struggling to keep its balance. Here's the mistake men make. They demand airtight evidence. They want proof, a smoking gun, something undeniable. But the truth doesn't always come with a receipt. It comes in inconsistencies. It comes in the way her story unravels the more you listen. The harder she tries to control the narrative, the more obvious it becomes that the narrative is slipping away from her. So what's the move? Stop playing detective. You don't need to gather evidence for a courtroom trial. You already have the signals, the changes, the silences, the patterns. When her story collapses, you don't argue with it, you step out of it. You don't beg her to make it make sense. You don't yell for confessions. You simply decide, I don't believe you and I don't need to anymore. That's not an accusation, that's a boundary. And here's the empowering shift. Once you stop demanding explanations, you reclaim your power. You stop being the man chasing clarity from someone who thrives on confusion. You become the man who sets the line, and the line is simple: respect or nothing. Practical step: practice quiet recognition. The next time her story starts wobbling, don't fill the silence with questions, let it fall. Don't rescue her from the weight of her own contradictions. That silence is your ally. It exposes what words are trying to hide. And understand this, you don't need to scream cheater to regain your dignity. All you need is clarity and the courage to act on it. Because when her story collapses, the truth is no longer the issue. The only issue left is your decision. Will you keep lying to yourself, or will you stand up for the man you know you are? Betrayal leaves scars, but the deepest wound is not what she did. It's what you allow yourself to ignore. The Stoics remind us that pain is not in the event itself, but in how we choose to face it. And brother, the choice is yours. Live blind in denial, or walk forward in clarity and self-respect. This is Stoic Reflections, where we turn suffering into strength and expose the truths most men refuse to face. If this message spoke to you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a man who still needs to hear it. And in the comments, tell your story, because your experience may be the reflection that saves another man's dignity. Remember this: women may betray, life may test you, but you never betray yourself. Hold your ground, guard your respect, and walk with the strength of a Stoic.